right, hello everybody. I'm William Blake, the Assistant Town Administrator for the Town of Grafton, and with me I've got...
Broussard, Town Administrator.
And this is the inaugural episode of Grafton's new podcast. The purpose behind this is to give another outlet for people to get information about the town as opposed to coming to public meetings or having to go to YouTube. Once we figure out how to upload podcasts, it'll be on Spotify and all those things so people can listen in the car, when they're on walks, whenever they just really want to know what's going on in town. And because of the laid-back nature, we are dubbing it Municipals. And with us today is our first honorary municipal, Don Anderson.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And Don, we brought you on because town meeting is next week, and you play a pivotal role in the town meeting process.
Yes. I bang the gavel and start the meeting.
What is your title, Don?
That's what I was trying to get at.
My title is Madam Moderator, Town Moderator for the Town of Grafton, okay. Open town meeting.
Thanks. How long have you been moderator for?
This is 3 years now, so this will be my 6th time overseeing town meeting.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think my first town meeting in Grafton was your first town meeting as moderator.
Yes,
right?
Out there on the fabulous football field at Grafton High School.
It was the first town meeting I ever went to.
Oh, really?
I was confused through the entire thing.
Well, me too. Remember the pop-up tent almost impaled you?
Yes, I do. That
time.
was delightful. Yeah,
that's one of my town meeting memories.
Quick reflexes, ducking down as the pop-up tent just rolled down the track line.
Thing went for a ride.
Yep.
So, town meeting is next Monday. That's May 13th.
Yep, 7 p.m., Grafton High School Auditorium.
Right. So let's just jump into, Don, what's your favorite part of town meeting?
My favorite part of town meeting is what usually happens at the end, and that's where we put all the citizens' petitions, because it's just, gives me the opportunity to really dig in and learn about some of the things that are outside the scope. So much of what we do at town meeting is paying the bills, appointing committees, reviewing bylaws, and these are the more unusual things that come before town. So I like really learning about them and being as prepared as possible for them.
Excellent.
Yeah.
When we get a particularly odd citizen's petition or something you might not have encountered before, what avenues are available for you to figure out how to handle them or figure out what's in order or out of order?
Of course, my reference guide, my Bible, Town Meeting Time, is always my first stop. I have so many tabs and stickers and arrows and underlines and highlights in that. But as town moderator, I'm a member of the Massachusetts Moderator Association, the other MMA, because I know that there is also a Massachusetts Municipal Association. So this is just for moderators, and all the moderators can participate in what's called a gavel line, which is a discussion thread that's run through Google. So you can put out a question and it pops into your inbox, and every reply that you get pops into your inbox. So you can, especially in the fall and spring, it gets very prolific with questions and feedback and comments and debate and cross-referencing. And then as town meetings happen, people put in the highlights from their town meeting. So if something went viral, that'll go into, they'll be like, we got a viral clip. A couple years ago, it was Nantucket that actually went viral, and someone had a video of town meeting that they put on Twitter, and it just got lighten up the gavel line.
Was it a positive viral in nature, or was it?
It was the year that Nantucket was discussing banning miniature bottles, the nips, and also discussing whether or not to allow for nude beaches. And
just topless, right?
The articles were back to back.
Right.
So
and wasn't it? It's just that all public beaches are now topless.
Topless.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yeah.
being moderator for now, going on 6 town meetings,
Yes.
is it any less intimidating when the gavel line starts to light up and all of those emails start to roll into your inbox?
No, it's always, oh, I do tend to go through and scan and be like, oh yeah, I don't have to read the ones that are about a representative town meeting because I really don't have anything to contribute and
Right.
I have enough to worry about, so I'm not going to even like go down that rabbit hole. But the ones that are coming up, a lot of towns were adopting electronic voting, so that was really helpful. And I brought you guys some of the feedback that we got
Yep,
when we were
right.
looking at our electronic voting last year. So it's a lot. I have to not check it all the time. It's not my regular email address. It's a dedicated email address because I can get down the rabbit hole looking and people's comments and replies. And the moderators are from obviously all over Massachusetts. So people that are, well, that's not how we do it out here in the Berkshires, and other people are all the way up on the North Shore. It's very interesting how different the personalities of town meetings are depending on where you are in the state.
Yeah, because town meetings are colonial exercise, really. So it goes back to, the formation of the Commonwealth, and every town has adopted and changed and grown over the years and has their own nuances. I know when I came to Grafton, it was an odd experience to go through the first one because it's not the bones of it are the same, but the pageantry or the little nuance that makes it Grafton is entirely different. So that was pretty interesting to go through.
So what number town meeting is this for you now, Evan, between the 2 communities you've worked for?
Yes.
So this is my 20th regular town meeting, but my 27th total. Because we had specials and people did petitions that called their own specials and things like that.
Yeah. So we here in town, for those who don't remember, used to have specials, which we got rid of so that we don't. That was a question I got on the football field at my first town meeting. We called the special meeting to order.
Right.
We zipped through everything that was on the warrant because it was just outstanding financials from that fiscal year.
Right.
And then I closed the meeting and we just sat around waiting until the next meeting is about to begin.
Right.
And I had someone walk up to me and say, why can't we just start the next one now? And I said, well, because we posted the warrant and we said that it was going to begin at this time and we can't start early.
Right.
That would be a disservice to the people who are planning to come here for the annual town meeting, not for the special. So
Yeah.
it was a huge
The way
time
I was used to it was you would go into you'd open your annual town meeting, and then we would do the first 3 articles and then go to the special, and then do the special and then come back out. And Article 4 was always the omnibus. So you would do the first 3 and then go into the special, close the special, come back to the omnibus, which was very confusing.
I bet.
And then I think we only did that once here since I've been here, that we had the staggered time, and then we went to just the regular annual, and we have the annual broken apart into 2 sections. One section impacts current fiscal year, and the rest of it impacts the upcoming fiscal year.
Yep.
So that's a very smooth way to kind of get around that, which I like. I think the format's a lot better.
Yeah, and we bundle those in the consent agenda.
Yeah. When we talk about consent agenda, do you get any pushback on consent agenda?
I haven't. In the times that I've been asked about what I thought about them, I said, have you ever actually just sat down and read how long it would take to read every single article and go through the motion of voting, calling for the vote, even if there's no debate? It takes time. It's a huge time saver,
Right.
especially if you know you have to pay the bill anyway. What are you going to do?
Right.
Not close out the current fiscal year? Just
Yeah,
let it dangle?
I've gotten some pushback on it, mainly because Grafton didn't do consent agendas till I got here. And so it was viewed as like, a change, or that's my consent agenda. But it was pretty, I think otherwise it's been pretty well received, because a lot of it is, hear reports from town officers that Grafton hasn't done in 100 years.
Yeah,
Whatever
no, we
it is,
don't.
right?
Well, and the important thing to remember there is if there's something in the consent agenda somebody wants to talk about, they can hold that article and
Absolutely.
handle it just like a normal article. There's the discussion, the motion, the voting.
Yeah.
Yep.
It doesn't lock something into the agenda.
Yeah, I think that can be daunting for people though, because it's a parliamentary process. And if you don't know or haven't been to a town meeting before, it is very odd. It's not a natural. People don't understand really how voting works and how the moderator works and what you would have to say if you wanted to hold something. Or I've told Will I was at a town meeting once where a gentleman from the back yelled "point of privilege," and the council I was with said, "Uh-oh, I gotta look that up." Because it had never come up in the whole career he had had.
Yeah.
No one had ever made that motion.
Yep.
Which, if you're curious, just means that they want to be able to speak from where they are. And so you have to bring them a microphone.
We do that now.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a non-issue here, but at
Yep.
the time it was
It was
a challenge to figure out.
point of personal privileges.
Yep.
Like you could even have it be, it's really hot in here. What is
Right.
going on?
Right.
Why is it so hot in here? Like
Right.
personal privilege could be room temperature. It could be I can't get up to the microphone.
Right, right.
It could be you're not loud enough, or there's too much feedback and you're too loud. So it's
Yeah.
just really the privileges, like what's happening that's impacting my enjoyment of town meeting.
Yeah, right, right. Well, what's your favorite part of town meeting?
I very much enjoy running the clicker system. It's one of those things where at the end it feels nice to have accomplished something that is a permanent record of the meeting. There's all that data that we can sift through if need be. And it's one of those things where town meeting goes well, the clicker system doesn't have any hiccups. I know I still have a job at the end, which is always reassuring.
Probably. Do you want
Most
to
of the
explain
time.
what is the clicker system? Because I think if you've never been to town meeting,
Yeah, so the clicker system is our electronic voting software. So last town meeting, we switched over to a new system. It's little remotes, that's what I'm looking for. Little remotes with two buttons, one that says two that says no. And when we reach the point on an article where you get to vote, you make your selection and a receiver up by Dawn collects all of the information and displays to her right away whether it's a majority, a 2/3 vote, whether the article passes, whether it fails,
Right.
all that good stuff. And it makes that portion of town meeting go so much smoother.
It does, although it took, so when we first started coming back into the high school after COVID, we didn't use the clicker system
Right.
for that first year.
Yep.
So then the next year we did use it, and the machine calculates everything and puts a percentage on the screen. And I was so used to trying to calculate it in my head, like when we had to do a 2/3, that I would be like, and 3 meetings in a row, about halfway through, I turned to William and I go, "It's on the screen." He's like, "I know," and I would be like on
put it
my
there.
note, on my writing my notes. So it's really efficient. It's very, very makes it a lot easier.
yeah,
And the new system works a lot better. We now only need one PowerPoint because the clicker system operates separate from what the audience sees. And when I first got here, I was given like a 65-page guide on how to run the old clicker system.
Yep.
And the new one is far more intuitive.
Yes, I think I still have a copy of that guide.
It was a great guide. I referenced
Yeah.
it all the time, but it's much less daunting now.
Yeah.
yeah.
Evan, what's your favorite part of town meeting?
I like that it's unpredictable in nature. I like that people get up and ask questions that you couldn't have, anticipated. When we did the bylaws, right, we had 41 bylaws to pass and changes, and the only question was about boat motors on Lake Ripple.
Cripple.
And that was not where I thought the conversation would go. So I like that part of it. I like that it gives people an outlet to ask questions that they don't maybe want to in a different venue or aren't really sure of how to ask. But everyone that's necessary to answer their questions is already in that room. So I think that that's pretty cool. And I also like that, staying along that vein of unpredictability, is that you will hear from different populations or representatives of populations, if you will, things that you might not have anticipated would be a problem for people or concern for people. So often you're hyper focused on the one group that article is going to benefit or not benefit, or however that works. But then someone will get up and ask a question or talk about how that might impact them, and it's just always interesting to hear. Yeah. Kind of on that same thread, do you have any memorable town meeting moments that you think of when, or somebody that isn't in municipal government that asks you about your job and then they ask you about town meeting? What's the story that you tell them?
Well, when people ask me about my job, my first question is, have you seen Parks and Recreation?
Right.
Because it's that.
Right.
Town meeting in particular, I don't know if I have a particular story that I tell about town meeting, but it's something that so many people, especially the younger people who I hang out with, have no idea what town meeting is.
Right.
So when I explain it to them that it's an opportunity for residents of the town to go and take direct action on the budget of the town, take direct action on the bylaw or the charter if it exists in the town, they always find that fascinating, because a lot of them complain about the towns they live in, but have no idea how to actually impact change or interact with the municipality in any way.
Yeah. You have any memorable moments?
Other than almost being decapitated?
Right, the impalement.
Yeah, that was quite the kickoff.
Man, that would have been a story.
Right?
We should see if we can replicate that.
It's been the first and last town meeting.
Yeah. Even before I became moderator, I was a very regular attendee of town meeting. And one of my favorite moments was always Jim Gallagher getting up and giving an impassioned speech about whatever the subject was that he was invested in, and him just, he was amazing.
Yeah.
He was just so dedicated to the town, but so well informed and not afraid to shame people. Like, he literally used that phrase once when we were voting on funding something for CPC, and he just turned and was like thundering with his cane, and he's like, "You all should be ashamed of yourself." And I was like, I want to meet him. And then I did get to meet him, so that was nice.
Yeah, Jim, I have a lot of Grafton memories, even in the first 3 years I've been here, of Jim.
I always enjoyed that he offered to buy another T from Ed Often's name.
Yeah, that was funny.
That's quality humor.
That is. That's good dad humor. Yeah, I have a bunch, but I went to this is gonna date me, but my first town meeting I ever went to was in 1991. I was 11 years old, and it was the only town meeting I remember my parents going to, and they went to it because they were gonna build a new school. Because the school that I was in was condemned, and the ceilings fell down when we were not at school. All the plaster caved in.
That's awful.
Yeah, it was rough. I went to school in a trailer for a little bit because of that. And so they were going to build a new school. And I remember very specifically a guy getting up to speak against the new school. And that was not the room to do that. And it was clearly packed with pro-school people. And they just shouted him down until he stopped talking and got down. And I actually, when I got interviewed to be a TA, that was the example I used of how that always stuck with me, that like, why can't we just let that guy finish saying whatever he's going to say? You probably know how you're going to vote before you even walk into the room. Mm-hmm. So let the person get off their chest whatever they think they need to say, and then move on and take your vote. So that always sticks with me. The other one I have is we had a moderator. This is like my first or second town meeting as a town administrator, and they were doing an easement for a property, and the people that were the recipient of the easement were Mike and Penelope. I won't say their last name, but the moderator called them Mike and Penelope the whole time. And their name had to come up. It was this big legalese thing, and he must have said Penelope 15 times, and I was just in absolute stitches the whole time. So that's one of my favorites. But I mean, I've been through so many. I have a lot of things that I've seen over the years, and it's different here in Grafton because I don't know everyone yet. Whereas in my previous community, like the people getting up and talking against things that we were doing were my former teachers and parents, friends, and all that kind of stuff. So that was a little bit of a different experience, but yeah, Penelope sticks in my mind.
Yeah.
As one of my favorites. So yeah. Town meeting is, as we talked about, it's complex. It is not a normal kind of function that people don't live their lives the way the town meeting operates. What do you think is the most confusing aspect of town meeting for people that have never, you just walk into that room and it's like it's a whole different approach to getting things done?
I've seen, just from, I was in town meeting, as I said, I used to go all the time, and the first time someone yelled out, "Move the question!" I was like, what is going on? Why are we yelling? And then the fact that when someone does that, it means that we've been having a discussion about an article. Now, someone in the audience wants to stop talking about it. Move on. You have to vote on whether or not to stop discussion. And it has to pass by 2/3 majority. It
Right.
can't be a simple majority. It's basically almost everyone has to say, all right, we're done talking about this. And I've seen people get up and walk out after the vote was taken to move the question.
Yeah, right, 'cause they think it's the vote.
They didn't
Yeah.
understand that that means we're gonna actually vote now. That we move the question, so it's time to move on this question, take action on the actual motion at hand. And it has happened while I've moderated. Just last year it happened. People were cheering and I was like, wait.
Right.
As I explained, this just means we're gonna vote on the article now. So
Right.
let's do that. And it happens every time.
Yep.
And especially if the debate has gone on for a while and things have gotten heated. Like I've seen the move the question debate
Go a long time.
go a long time.
Right.
And not while I was moderator, it was before. And I've definitely noticed there's a lot more agreement of moving the question now than there was before COVID. I feel like people were willing to dig in their trenches and really, well, I want to keep talking about this, and now people are like, I want to get out.
Right.
I don't know if I want to be around this many people.
Right.
Let's move out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So move the question, I think, is
That's pretty confusing.
the confusing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree. Will, what confuses you? Well, let me back up.
Most things.
What I was going to say, that is a long and distinguished list. Let's go with so. You're new to town meeting. What do you think is the most confusing part?
I think one of the most confusing things for me, as somebody who just started going to town meetings 3 years ago, is that depending on what the article is about, it's not finished at town meeting. So you and I have had long discussions about bylaw changes and charter changes, and those have to go to the Attorney General's office to be reviewed, and they've got 90 days. At the end of 90 days, they can ask for 30 more days, and that's after they've had a couple of weeks to review them. So it's confusing to see that things aren't always done that night, and even when you know when you're supposed to get them, you don't always get them.
Right. Yeah, I often think that people are confused about when they can speak to a certain topic. The whole fact that it's a warrant with articles on it is not, again, a normal thing that people deal with in their daily lives. But then also, we're talking about, there was one, actually from here, we're talking about something that impacted 59 Pleasant Street. Or it did not. It did not, right.
It did not.
It just was housing in general.
Yep.
And then the person got up and wanted to talk about 59 Pleasant Street, And even though it is broadly, both of the areas discussed were about housing, really isn't within the scope of the article.
Yep.
And it's hard, people don't understand that this isn't a free-for-all
This isn't
forum.
public comment.
Right.
This is, you were told that this is the subject of this discussion. You need to keep it within the four corners
Right.
of this subject and not take this is an opportunity to, get on a soapbox about something
Yeah.
that's somewhat related to what
Yeah.
we're talking
And I
about.
like how you handle those things too,
Thank
as
you.
an aside. I been to some town meetings where the moderator is a lot less generous, and it gets pretty wild.
That's funny because there is a moderator who I think might be the kindest human being I've ever met in my life. And I posed a question before last year's town meeting. We had our board of directors meeting for the Moderators Association the Sunday before. So I had been struggling with a question and I put it to the table, and everyone else at the table said, "That's out of order. I wouldn't even let him bring the motion to the floor." And my very kind colleague to the west said, "Well, I think I would let them bring the motion to the floor, but then explain to town meeting that it is inaccurately written, and that if you do vote in favor of it, it doesn't matter because it's going to get thrown out by the Attorney General anyway, that it's out of order." And I was like, but aren't you just wasting everyone else's time, like to be that kind to the person who wrote the citizens petition, that
Right.
you're gonna make everyone else sit through the process of having a discussion about it?
Right.
Because as soon as you do that, you can have a discussion about it. And he's like, "No, I think so." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that."
Yeah.
No.
I've been through some town meetings where people just get booted right out very quickly. The moderator gives one warning and then it's just, you're out, which hasn't happened since I've been in Grafton, so.
No, I have not.
Good-
Although
good for
I
you.
did share with some of my friends in town that I practice doing that at home in the mirror because I'm
Kicking people out of
terrified of
With-
having
with
to
your
do
husband?
it. Where I practice what
You're
I would
done.
have to say to be calm yet
Right.
authoritative and say, "I'm sorry, but if you keep in this vein, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I have told you if you continue saying this, I will have Chief Crapo, who I'm very much throwing under the bus and making him be my bad guy,
Right.
escort you from the room."
Yeah.
And I practice that so that I'm ready. I've never had to say it, but I do actually practice that.
So that raises an interesting point. Have you ever had something from town meeting spill over into everyday life? Like, have you been walking through the supermarket and somebody has come up to talk to you about something they disagreed with the way you handled it?
So far, no.
Okay, good.
But I have had
I've jinxed
someone.
you. That'll happen in like 2 days, just so you know.
Right, next week. But I have had someone, and it was like in 2022 when we were starting to no longer wear masks out in public. I had someone walk up to me at CVS and say, "Oh my God, you're Don Anderson, you're the town moderator." And I was like, "Yes, I am." And I thought, oh, I really have a new appreciation for people who have this happen to them all the time because I don't know who you are. That was really weird.
Yeah, that was when I first, this was my second year in Grafton. Will and I were getting lunch at Bushel and Peck, and a woman came up and told me how great it was that I was running the microphone up to an elderly person. And it was, it's that same thing, because she probably sees me a lot on TV and stuff, but I don't know any of these people, I don't know everybody. But I thought that was pretty cool. It doesn't happen.
Most of the time when people recognize you, it's because they're mad at you. So that was just that was a good change of
That was
pace.
a
And
nice-
that's kind of the town administrator curse, right? So,
Is that why you don't want to move to Grafton?
yeah. Yeah, I did 7 years working and living in the same place, and
That was enough.
I still have people that were my problem residents stop at my house, and I haven't been a town administrator there for 4 years. Just
Maybe
last
they
week, I was
think
taking the
you still
trash out,
have-
and a guy stopped in the road, backed up,
had some things to say.
Yeah, about things I did 6 years ago.
Wow.
And not for nothing, they weren't even things I did. They were things that the board did while I happened to work there.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with me.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, I don't miss that aspect of it. And I also like that it's, not to go off on a soapbox, but it's easier to be impartial because I don't care whose brother is and all that stuff. I don't have any of that. I just, this is what the law says, or this is what our policy says, or our bylaw says, and that's how we do it.
I mean, I've lived in Grafton for 16 years, but I knew like a small group of people, but not that many people. I don't have generational knowledge. And when I pulled my papers, Jen Pluzzi, who ran Grafton Common at the time, got my phone number from Candy because she was alerted every time someone was pulling papers to interview them. And the first thing she said to me was, "I'm sorry, but I don't know who you are. I have never heard of you before." And I said, "Okay." And when I came to meet Bob for my Meet the Candidate interview, he said basically the same thing in a much nicer way. It's like, I don't think I've heard your name before. Thank you, Ray, for telling me that someone was running for this position because I hadn't heard.
He said it in a nicer way, but nonetheless judgy.
Nonetheless judgy. So yeah, I don't have a lot of I don't have a horse in this race. I like town meeting before, and I've
You're
been
a
asked
town meeting
before.
nerd?
Yeah, I was like, this is really interesting to me, and it's absolutely uninteresting to my husband, and he could care less. So,
Yeah,
but
my wife only came to one town meeting.
did she stay for the whole thing?
She did, but that's just because the thing that interested her was at the end.
Oh, so
I would like to tell you that it was for moral support, but it was not.
no,
And then never came to another one again and was
Yeah.
like, I don't know why you would do that.
yeah,
for a job.
Sebastian came to one. He stayed for the opening remarks, and then he just kind of like was
Yep.
like, "See you at home."
I was very excited. Katie was supposed to be in town on Monday, so she was going to get to come to town meeting, and then very conveniently picked up a shift at work. So that way, oh no, she can't come to town meeting.
Can't come. I have a work event on Tuesday, so all of the bigwigs are flying in from New York on Sunday night and Monday. Monday night they're having dinner at the Real House in Marina Bay, Quincy, and I said, I can't come. I'm sorry, but you all are more than welcome to come to Grafton to town meeting and see town meeting.
How
And
it
they were
works.
like,
No.
no,
Hard
thank
pass.
you. No, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, as we discussed, your sixth meeting, we've changed a lot of things in that time.
Yes.
So what's the addition that or change that we've made that you're most excited about, or think made the biggest impact, or anything like that?
I think moving in off the football field was awesome. And I think we talked about this at one point when we were meeting. It's like, I feel like every time we had a town meeting for like that first 4 meetings, something was changing as we receded from the really depths of COVID.
Right.
And one of the things that I did was to invite the 8th graders to the spring town meeting so that they can see that in person before they go on their field trip to Washington, D.C. And that is something that I'm the most excited about because I think it's great for them to see it, but I also think it's great that their parents come because there are a lot that haven't gone to town meeting and maybe, but as a parent, I know that I'll do something so my kid can get an A on a quiz grade. So I've had people come up to me since I first started doing that and saying how much they enjoyed it and saying, I may not go again, but I'm glad I went and now I understand what it is. And I know that if I have a concern and I know where to go. So that is my favorite part, is having the middle school students there. Although I did not realize that in the weeks leading up to it, they put, because they're learning about town government, they put pictures up of everyone in the classroom.
Oh, really?
So that first year, I had the eighth graders come was the year my son was in eighth grade. I didn't know that he had to go to his social studies class every day for weeks before town meeting with a picture of me hanging on the wall. So everyone knew that was Remy's mom.
Yeah.
And he handled it really well because he's just such a supportive kid and wonderful. So he was great. But now my younger son is going to be in eighth grade next year, and I have a feeling that it'll be very different for him because he is not nearly as outgoing or open with his personal things. He's like very much a need-to-know basis kind of kid.
Oh, really?
He's going to walk into social studies class and say,
Just
I've got no idea who that person is.
I don't know who that is. Liz Spinney was telling me that they asked her, she has an eighth grader this year, to raise your hand if you know anyone on school committee, and they
You did not?
did not.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't either if my mom was on school committee.
Yeah. So
Just fly under the radar.
yeah, that is 100% my favorite thing is having the eighth graders come to Springtown meeting.
Yeah.
At our annual moderators meeting in the fall, I was in charge of one of the breakout rooms on how to promote town meeting. And I had my whiteboard and I was taking notes and everyone would come. And then at the end I was like, all right, these are some good ideas. Here's some of the things that I've done in Grafton. And they were like, you do what? Oh my God, you have them come to town meeting? I said, yep, we have them come to town meeting. We do school committee started bringing bingo cards too. I created a handout for people who have never been so they can kind of understand what's going on a little bit. And I gave a shout out to GCTV and how much programming we put in around town meeting. And I'm definitely going to share the podcast idea.
There you go.
So
It's a wonderful idea.
One of my goals in running for moderator was to get more people to go to town meeting because I really believe that the more people know about it and go to the meetings, it may make the meetings longer because there'll be more debate, there'll be more discussion, but I also think that it will give people a sense of ownership and an understanding of where their money goes and how the process works. It's there's some things you can't control, but it's good to at least understand how decisions are made.
Right.
That it's not arbitrarily happening in some back room somewhere.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Do you think more people are going to town meeting?
I have seen a steady increase.
Okay.
But we have just around 20,000 residents.
19,684 by the last
Yes,
time.
thank you. There's 14,780 residents on Nantucket. How many people think went to their town meeting last night?
550.
95.
1,400.
That's crazy.
You were closest without going over.
That's almost a tenth of their population showed up for town meeting.
Price is Right rules.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
What did they have anything like real sexy on the agenda?
Yeah. Yeah, they had some stuff about secondary short-term rentals. And that is
that's
a big
the hot button.
for them.
Right.
So, but last year they had a fist fight at Nantucket town meeting between brothers
Oh,
on opposite sides of an issue.
no kidding.
Yep.
We had to go to Nantucket next year.
Yeah, I really want to go to Nantucket town meeting.
Yeah, that would be pretty interesting.
Yep.
Maybe this year I'll hit Will.
This is why we sit on opposite sides of the stage.
I could get up and walk across and just slap you one. No.
But do you still have your red?
Paddle?
No, the
laser pointer.
laser
that I point
pointer.
At people? Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no reason for it anymore, but I still use it to like mess with Amber at the back of the room and stuff. Yeah.
Put a dot on Paul Knoyer across the room.
Will, what are you, you've made a lot of changes yourself. What do you think is the thing that we're doing different now that you think is better?
I like that year over year the warrant becomes a more robust document. So we've added like a glossary of terms for things.
Yes.
The written out explanation of what the consent agenda does. This year, we're actually working on a write-up of the Attorney General approval process to put in there,
Oh, nice.
because we got a question on that after the fall town meeting. I think that's something that people should know about.
Right.
And I think that overall it has made town meeting more accessible to somebody walking in for the first time when paired with the little guide that you put together. But on top of that, I think town meeting in general is more accessible. So this year, through the efforts of Bob Berger, we actually have an American Sign Language interpreter who will be at the meeting to make it accessible for those who are deaf or hard of hearing.
Yep. And we have closed captioning provided by Grafton Cable Oversight Committee. Did I say that correctly?
GCTV.
And GCTV, but it's funded.
Okay.
It's actually Bill sits in the back typing really fast, whatever everybody says.
Yep.
It's not Google Translate.
It's not auto-generated, it's all Bill.
It's all Bill.
It's all Bill.
Yeah, I mean, I like the explanations, the warrant changes. I like the new clicker system. That took so much stress off of our office.
I mean, last year, remember? You guys had it all set. You brought it to the high school. It would work. And then
Yep,
it would
stop
working.
working. Yep.
Then it
Oh,
would
that
work,
was
and then it would stop working.
super. That was the year before last, and it was super stressful.
Yep.
Or was that last
That was
town meeting?
Last year,
it
because
was
we
spring.
had to do the spring town meeting, because then
Right,
we went and got the
correct,
paddles.
right.
And then we ran out of paddles.
Right.
It was.
I think we bought more paddles.
We
I
did
think. Okay.
after that.
Yeah.
And then we got a new
The
electronic
paddles are a
voting
great
system.
backup.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's a good backup.
Well, that was one of those times I brought it home, I tested it, everything worked, brought it back in, tested it again, everything worked, and then day of, it just decided that it was done.
Yep. Well, what did you say about that machine? That it was the last purchase of an old technology?
Yeah, it was
it was like at the end of its
Yep,
lifespan.
right. It was
when
antiquated when we bought it.
When we bought it,
Right.
and we were like one of the last people to buy it.
Yep.
And then it sat dormant for a couple of years when we
Right.
weren't using it during COVID. So it wasn't even,
And we were taking it, and we'll have to do this with the new system too eventually, but we were taking bags of clickers home and changing batteries at home.
Yep.
Everyone in our office has been, does the battery change routine. And there's a lot. There's, 600 of these ones, I think, right? Is that what we bought?
500, I think.
Okay.
And the good thing with the new system, just to keep talking about it,
I know what you're going to say.
if we ever had something that we thought was going to be super contentious, and there are a couple of towns around us that use the same software, from 501 on, we can borrow their clickers.
Yep.
And
Well, from
That's-
1 to 500, because we started numbering ours at like 1,000, right? We left a gap in our start so that we could, because other towns have 1 through like 800.
Yes, that way we
So-
could bundle them with multiple
Right, because then we could borrow
So-
Groton's. Groton has a 1 to 800. We could borrow Groton's.
1,001 to
Yeah,
1,500.
or something like that.
Yeah, so we can piggyback
Right,
with
it's all
other towns
scalable.
because they're all sequential, and that
Yep.
way, if we did have something that really, I remember the first town meeting I went to was at Grafton High School, but that's when it was in the middle school, and they were voting on building a high school, and the auditorium was so packed with people that they had all the bleachers and chairs in the gym, and that's where I sat
Okay. Yeah,
And-
as an overflow.
as an overflow. And that had to be the highest attendance that we had
Yeah,
that I can remember.
yeah. I like the clicker, obviously. That's really been a game changer. There's one other thing I was thinking of that I like that we kind of have changed kind of that whole dynamic, even though people kind of sit where they sit, like we've really drilled down on who does what and when we do the logistics and pull all that together. I think that's gotten a lot more refined.
And I did try and change things up when we moved back into the auditorium to get the microphones a little bit further up on the incline and moved where FinCom was. FinCom did not like where I put
Right
them.
back on that
And they were like,
stage,
we're
yeah.
going back on the stage. And I think just trying those things out made it, okay, we're definitely in the best configuration that we can have.
Yeah,
And
they did not like that.
They didn't like that.
Sue
And-
Robbins threatened my life.
did not like that. And then one of the other things that I've been fortunate enough to partner with the National Honor Society to get the the students to come. So although Evan appreciated being the rock star, running that microphone around, now we have volunteers from the National Honor Society come, and there are some meetings where they never have to get up and never have to do anything.
Right.
But it's nice to have it there because we do have, some folks that can't go down that incline, and that was my concern.
Right.
So
Yeah. The other major improvement that we've made at town meeting, which really has nothing to do with any of us, is one involves GCTV, which is the changing of technology to get everything to go out live, and the other one is the professional sound that's provided by the schools. So that was always something that was glitchy and troublesome. The auditorium is built for shows, not for town meeting.
Yeah.
And so when we bring in someone that does town meetings all over the place, and that's what they do is sound, man, that really changed the quality
it made it much easier.
it makes it a lot easier to listen to. So yeah, anything specific you want to mention about this particular town meeting?
Let me see. We have 43 articles, so
Two consent agendas.
2 consent agendas. I do have to get up really early on Tuesday. I have to be at Mattahunt Elementary School in Mattapan by 6:30 in the morning. So if we could just make
super
this
early.
as efficient as possible, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think Grafton generally has a pretty efficient,
I think so. Yeah.
considering,
Absolutely.
talking to other town administrators that go 3 days, 8
Yeah.
days.
Westboro does their town meeting on Saturdays, which I
Yep.
know is something we've talked about here, but 14 hours last spring,
Yeah,
and they ended up coming back on Sunday to finish. That's a lot.
yeah.
I think
They
we
serve
are.
the lunch at their town meeting,
Yep. Yeah.
which is just absolutely absurd to me.
No, I think it's, but that's Westboro's tradition, right? So I think that's cool because that's the town meeting has its own personality in every
Exactly.
community.
Every town has its own
And,
energy.
and shout out to Christy Williams, who is the town manager of Westboro, who also lives in Grafton.
Oh, hi.
A fellow Graftonite, well, not fellow, because I'm not a Graftonite, but your fellow Graftonite.
My fellow
A friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod,
Friend of
Christy
the pod.
Williams. Yeah. Yeah, we should have Christy on. She's a fantastic town manager. So, Will, we had talked before too. Do you think that this upcoming town meeting, the one we have coming up on Monday, do you think there's anything on that warrant that draws people to come to the meeting? For example, last town meeting, Holden Farms
Last
was
spring.
on there,
Yep.
right, last spring. A lot of people came out for that issue.
Mm-hmm.
People that had clearly never been to a town meeting before.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always those things, those hot buttons, or those as I like to call them, those sexy issues that bring people in. This one seems pretty.
Yeah, for things coming internally, I think it's a lot of boilerplate stuff. The citizens' petitions are always wild cards. You never know who's going to show up for those. But for things that came from, our office, the Board of Sewer Commissioners, CPC, things like that, it's a lot of stuff that I think people have seen before. CPC's got some interesting projects they're looking to fund. But that's really to me, the most interesting things that we'll see there.
Yeah, and even the CPC things that are quote unquote interesting are not outside of the realm of what you would anticipate CPC bringing forward. They're great projects, but there's just not the question that reporters used to ask me about town meeting was, do you have anything hot on the agenda for town meeting? And I'd say no, and they'd say, oh, are you worried about quorum? Because those are the only two options,
Yeah.
right? It's either going to be more people than you can handle because it's a big issue,
Yes.
or it's just regular budget and stuff and nobody comes
Nobody comes. Well, we
Right.
sidestepped that altogether in Grafton.
and have no quorum,
We have no quorum.
right? Which
So-
is another kind of wild concept.
Yes.
If you think about it, you could have 2 residents show up. Actually,
You could just have select board
Right,
FinCom
right, 'cause
and
they're all
moderator
residents.
and the
Right, exactly.
clerk come,
Yep.
and we could run the whole thing.
Yep.
from that small group of people.
Yeah,
I don't believe that's ever happened,
No,
but
But
there's always...
it's interesting to contemplate, like just how much power people have over their own town.
Yep.
And how few people come and actually exercise that power.
Yeah. The hearing about it from other moderators, went like for the quorum, that they have a phone chain that gets activated because they can't start the meeting unless they have enough people. So they're like, how far away are you? We need to get going on this. And that's not something that that was actually a question I had in studying for my first town meeting. Is like, I can't find anything in the bylaws or the charter that says what our quorum is. What's our quorum? I don't understand. And then I talked to Ray, and he's like, oh, we don't have one. We never thought we needed to do that.
Yeah.
And in the original concept of town meeting, you were fined if you didn't go. Of course, you could only go to town meeting if you were a white landowning male.
Right.
But if you didn't go, you got a fine.
Right.
So, yeah. That was one thing that my son said to me when we did the Freedom Trail. And we were in one of the walk-in venues, and they had a display where you could push who could be in the room for town meeting. And it was like, you'd push a button and it'd be like, nope, that person can't be there. And he goes, you couldn't have even been in the room.
Right.
Like, as an observer.
Yeah.
And now you get to run the whole thing. I was like, I know, that's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. Yay,
That
democracy.
is cool. Yeah. Yay, democracy.
I like when we say something interesting here, Bill react in the booth.
Yeah, I actually, I'm listening to People's History of the United States right now. And I'm at the part where, it's colonial times and Jamestown and Massachusetts, and Will's smiling at me because my whole conversation with him this morning was about the winter of 1609 to 1610, where they ate people. And so that's where our conversation went this
It's like
morning.
9 o'clock in the morning, and this is what he
Good
opened
morning.
with.
Do you have any bagels?
Yeah.
So I'm listening to this podcast.
Yeah. But one of the interesting parts was that, the Iroquois and Algonquins and all these other tribes that were in contact with different colonizers, almost universally had no difference between males and females as far as input into whatever cultural thing they were doing, and some of them were matriarchal, and so it's just interesting to see the kind of puritanical shift as we came and pushed everybody off their land, but it's pretty interesting, so I recommend it. You should.
I am currently listening to Presidential from the Washington Post on the highlights of every president and what their legacy was and the impact, which is very good.
Yeah.
And I just finished Constitutional, which covered all the key points of the Constitution, which is really like how they became solidified, and the Bill of Rights, and it was very interesting.
Do they have, like, when you're doing it, like, you get to Millard Fillmore and it takes like 7 seconds?
Yep. They did. Yep.
Harrison?
Yep.
You lasted 30 days.
Yep. He was like, we're really going to focus on
Right.
what could have been.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, it's actually the second or third time I've listened to it. I first listened to it in 2020. That's actually when it was first released. They did this podcast, Presidential, where they went through, and it went all the way up through to, no, I take it back, it was 2016. It started in 2016, it went all the way up through the election, and the last episode of the regular season was Barack Obama, and then they paused, and then they had one come out.
Oh, nice.
And said, okay, we had 2 options we had ready to go, and here's President Donald J. Trump.
Right.
And I was like, moving on, let's go check out Constitutional podcast.
Yeah, I'll have to check out Presidential. That sounds good. I also just finished The Wager, which also features cannibalism. So seems to be a theme lately.
I like that we're giving all of the recommendations of things to listen to in between this episode of Municipals and the next episode.
In the
of
next
Municipals.
episode, so you're ready.
I listened to The Wager in 1 week, just commuting, and it's a great book. It's about a British ship that gets shipwrecked. It's pretty cool. It has some government features in it. So, anyways, back to what we're talking about today.
Town meeting is Monday, 7 p.m. at Grafton High School Auditorium.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking forward
Get
to
there
it.
a little early so you can check in, get your electronic voting
Get a
remote
seat in the front
control,
row.
Get a good seat.
Right.
We will have the Grafton Middle School there.
Yeah,
We
it's
will
gonna be
have
fun.
some runners. And I am really looking forward to see what random thing becomes the hot thing,
Yeah, me too.
you know? Because I remember you had George Hill one year, you were ready to go.
Yeah,
The
and then nothing.
handout and everything, and it was like,
Yep. But that's also the thing I think is interesting, because the more time you put into it, generally,
the less you
the
need
less
to.
you need to, because people have already understood what it is you're trying to do. Whereas, I think that I know other town administrators that do it the opposite, and I just don't think it works out.
Not work.
It just doesn't. Yeah. Well, do you have anything else you want to talk about outside of town meeting? You can have Don weigh in on the library cupola project.
Well, Don, I would love your input on the architecture of the cupola. But no, the cupola project is underway, which is good. The current estimated completion date is the middle of August. And that is, of course, being partially funded through CPC, the Mass Historic Commission, and the library itself. So it's unfortunate to see all the scaffolding up around the cupola, but it's exciting to know that we are nearing the end of that project.
Yeah.
We'll then be able to restore and repaint the ceiling underneath it.
Yeah, the historic reading room ceiling
Yeah.
it was tough to see it go through the process. My work on the capital campaign committee, was able to tour the library during construction and see that building that front of the building, the historical room, be transformed from one that had been, really overused. It was stuffed to the gills full of stuff,
Yeah,
because
right.
books and periodicals and cubbies and computers and checkouts, and it was so cramped you couldn't see anything in the room.
Yeah.
And then have all of that removed and be able to see the moldings and the trim and there's these beautiful bookcases that are built into the walls, and then see it all be restored, and then gradually see the paint come peeling back down again. And it was
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah, that
So
was
I'm very happy that it's being
rough.
addressed.
Yeah, we're moving through that pretty good. They're definitely making some progress. It's just
Yeah.
kind of painstaking work to restore
Yeah.
something that historic and old. And you might notice the giant red sign out in front of
Yes,
the library.
That is a requirement for the Mass Historic Grant. We did not put a 4-foot by 4-foot bright red sign out there by choice.
Yeah, that's actually
was-
in their grant. That's what you have to.
4-foot by 4-foot minimum
Minimum.
has to be a red sign with white text.
And what does it read?
It says preservation works in italic big letters at the top, and then runs through the building, where the money is coming from, who's doing the work.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. That's the only time I've ever really seen that in a grant. Besides CPC, sometimes towns have like specific signage that they want to have put up. But yeah, that was the first time.
Yeah, that was a new one. Not gonna lie.
Where is it? Because I've driven by the library a
It's-
couple of
it's,
times.
if
Is
you were
it kind of
facing-
closer to the Wheelock
Yes.
statue, like
Well-
facing that?
No, it's facing the intersection of Upton and the Common, right there.
Okay, so if you're
So if you were coming around the Common to then go on to Upton Street, it's right in front of you, in the front lawn.
how did I miss it? I drove by it twice last week.
It's a massive sign. I do not know how you missed it.
Yeah.
Must have been too busy singing along to the Tortured Poets Department.
Oh. Yeah, that's been on repeat in my house. Yeah.
Daddy, I love him.
Evan, anything outside the town meeting that you want to talk about?
No, I think we've covered a breadth of town meeting topics today. I'm just hopeful to see a lot of people turn out. I'm interested to see how the citizens petitions go, as you mentioned. And I'm always interested to see, again, what garners attention. It's always interesting to me that you can pass a budget of 77 million in 30
Don't bat
seconds,
an eye.
and then $12,000 renovation to something historic, and you talk about it forever. So it is interesting how that plays out. But I think we've developed a really good budget this year. Everything is pretty solid. The finance committee process was great, as it always is.
As it always is. They
We
do
have a great
wonderful
finance
job.
committee
They ask
here,
good
but very
questions.
collaborative, and we got a lot of I think things accomplished this year. So looking forward to the Super Bowl of municipal government, as it were, and and then we'll. As soon as that's over, then we start gearing up for July 1st.
So is the FinCom warrant review meeting like the Golden Globes?
Kinda, yeah.
And then the logistics meeting is the Emmys,
Right.
since we're...
Yes, of course.
Yes, my favorite meeting of the year, logistics. It is.
It was 12 minutes long.
I know, that's why I like it. That's why it's my favorite. Everybody know what they're doing. Yep, okay.
I like
Talk to you later.
Anything
See you in 2
special
weeks.
happening?
Right.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I also, one highlight I do think out of the CPC is that they've named the Housing Authority after Jim Gallagher. The Housing Authority
Rental assistance
rental
program.
assistance, thank you, yes, after Jim Gallagher,
Yep.
which I think is really
I'm
cool.
very pleased with that.
I think it's a good way to honor Jim and his memory. Yeah.
Excellent.
What about you? You got anything you want to plug?
I have no pluggables today. Maybe for the next episode.
Okay.
Don,
Sounds good.
anything you want to plug as our first guest?
I think it is May 21st is town election, and local town elections are incredibly important. That is how the decisions that really impact your day-to-day life happen. The big elections, the presidential, that's important. But on a day-to-day basis, who we have on our school committee, who we have on our select board, who we have for the planning board, who we have as a library trustee, those impact our lives. Library trustees are going to help us get that cupola fixed. They're going to hire the new librarian. They're going to be the ones who help decide what the hours are in that building, and that impacts everyone in town. So I think it's important that everyone keep in mind May 21st is election day, and you should find your precinct and make a plan to go and vote.
Excellent.
Great.
Well, Don, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, this was fun.
Great. Good start.
Yeah, and we will. The Municipals will be back in June with another episode,
Before we go, I do want to thank friend of the pod, Bill Robidoux.
and of course, friend of the pod, Bob DeTelma.
That's right. For hosting us today, that's great. And we'll refine the format a little and be back next month.
Excellent.
All right.